Good afternoon. This is Ann McFetridge. I am here in beautiful Palm Springs at ISHE 30, and I'm very fortunate to get to spend some time today with Susan Greenspoon from the Virginia DFS. She's a forensic molecular biologist there and has been in forensics for quite a few years. So we're here to pick her brain about what that experience has been like, being a female leader in a science-dominated world where men have traditionally kind of held the cards. So thanks so much for coming today. Appreciate it. What inspired you to be a forensic science? Why go into forensic sciences?
My answer to that would probably be a little bit different than some other people, because I literally just kind of fell into it. I was actually a postdoctoral fellow at University of Michigan, and I was in a molecular neuroscience lab. And I was kind of just questioning, did I really want to continue on this path, and what other kinds of things might I find interesting? And I just happened to see an ad, and I thought, that sounds like fun. That sounds like something I would enjoy. You know, it uses a lot of the knowledge that I'd acquired from undergrad and grad school, and it applies it to something I just hadn't even crossed my mind. And so it was just sort of happy circumstance, really. Just chance, kind of.
Excellent. Well, the universe kind of playing around
The
with
universe
all of that.
played a role,
Yeah.
But I did want to add something to that I thought about, and that is, while I might have just happened into it, I was lucky enough to attend a Promega meeting when I was still just being trained in forensics. And one of the things that really impressed me about this field was the fact that one of the very first people that I met was Bruce Badoli. And here was this prominent person, he was a presenter, everyone knew him, and I knew no one, but he was just really friendly and outgoing and engaged me and wanted to know what I was doing and what my background was like. And it was so different from traditional academic experiences that, you know, it was inspiring. That was inspiring, and so many people who are prominent in this field are really welcoming to new scientists and newcomers.
I totally agree. I came from academia as well. And it's like night and day in terms of how collaborative and open, and the dialogue is always, you know, okay, let's not focus on how this benefits me, let's focus about how this benefits our field. And just that, you know, the lack of hierarchy, right? You know, the fact that you can walk up to John Butler, who is like the godfather of, you know, forensics with the textbooks that he's wrote. He is the kindest, dearest man, right? And so, but if you go to an academic conference, the experience is very standoffish, people are aloof, you know, it's a different focus. So I totally get what you're saying.
I think it's
agree.
Really inspirational too. I really do. It's inviting and it's inspiring for anyone new to this field. Yeah.
So tell me how this role of forensic molecular biologist came about. So I think you had mentioned earlier that they had created this role for you. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it wasn't created for me, but it happened to be that what they were looking for was just, I checked all their boxes and they checked all my boxes. So it wound up being just a really great fit. That role was the brainchild of Paul Ferrara, who was the former director at the Virginia Department of Forensic Science. And he really wanted somebody with a research background to come in and be involved not just with research and validation, but troubleshooting, and just to be a resource for the laboratory. And that was just kind of a vision of his, and it took, I think they had to go and get the job approved by our General Assembly and have money allocated, and, you know, jump through some hoops. And then they had some specific criteria that they required, and I just happened to fill that, and so it worked out well.
Yeah, excellent. Because you've been there how long now?
I have been there for over 18 years.
Okay.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah, you blink and it goes by.
I know.
Just like that.
Well, they keep you really busy, and the
Yeah.
next thing you know, you look up and a decade's passed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this job is, exciting and fun, and it's a really interesting field, but it's not all roses and unicorns. Yeah. So, what are the hardest parts of doing this kind of work?
Well, I think for everyone, it's the really heinous cases. I'm not involved in a lot of cases now. I haven't really been heavily involved in casework for a while. I just do specialized kinds of cases. And I don't do the DNA anymore. I mean, I work in the lab and do DNA for research purposes, but not so much for cases. But I think that the victimization and brutality in some of these cases is so extreme. It's, it's hard to dismiss it as routine, especially when it's, a child or an elderly person. I can remember during my training observing testimony, and the case was it was a robbery, a breaking and entering robbery and sexual assault of an 86-year-old woman who was blind. Oh. And she was beaten, and I mean, but she survived, and she testified in court against this fellow, and he was convicted. But you just think, wow, what kind of person is just so depraved to victimize such fragile people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think having been to several of these conferences and other meetings as well, I think it is really hard to hear just how awful human beings can be to one another, right? And you just think, how does that happen? To somebody's grandmother, or someone's child. It really is.
It is.
But on the flip side, it's also incredibly encouraging to see the passion and the energy that people like yourself and your team of analysts and so forth bring to the job every day to ensure that justice can be served. And while you're not necessarily familiar with the details of the case, I think many analysts take an approach of my work is important, it has value, and so I'm going to put everything I can into it. So.
Oh, I would say so. I mean, my colleagues and people I've known in other labs, forensic scientists, just to the person, really care. They care a lot about their performance. They care a lot about producing the most objective, data-driven analysis of this case.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So if you could be anything else, what kind of career would you have pursued?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I found out, after being in forensics for a few years, I found out that art museums, I never knew this, they do their own sort of forensics, and they have their own sort of forensic laboratory.
Really? Wow.
Right, because, and that would be something that I would find very interesting, because I always had an interest in art, and I've always really enjoyed producing art. And the forensic scientists of the art world are involved in art restoration. Okay. And so what they do is they use scientific techniques to evaluate the history, really, of a piece of artwork that needs to be restored.
Wow.
And they use a variety of high-tech equipment like transmission electron microscopy and infrared analysis and a lot of different analyses, and try to limit the destructiveness, just like we do. They try to consume as little as possible, just like we do. Yeah. because they want to retain the artwork, but they want to uncover what's been done over the centuries to this item of art, and the goal is to restore it as closely as possible to its original state when it was first produced. And I thought that was a really interesting way of blending art and science.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought that would be
the best of both worlds. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So I'm sure over the last 18 years you have seen a whole lot of things that you just, cause you to shake your head. So what's the funniest or most memorable thing that, whether it's a case or something that's happened to you while you've been working in forensics?
Well, there was a case. It wasn't my case, but it was another DNA examiner's case in the lab I was working in that caused everyone to really roar with laughter because it was so
Please tell.
out there. Yeah. And in that case, it was an awful crime, although I think it was a crime against a child. It was a sexual assault, although I believe probably in this case, this child wasn't physically assaulted by this person's body, but the alleged perpetrator was grandmother's boyfriend.
Okay.
And so he allegedly had asked this 4-year-old girl, she was 4 years old, to mouth various sex toys.
Oh boy.
So, which I think incredible. But what became really pretty hilarious to us is that then the police, they searched grandmother's house for evidence and so on and so forth after this complaint was made. And they brought in an enormous box of sex toys. And so the examiner was having a lot of difficulty identifying these sex toys because some of them really looked like sex toys for aliens from another planet. They didn't look like humans would use these on humans because they were so bizarre looking.
Yeah.
And so because it was an enormous box full, and she was cataloging all of these, and she has to describe them and then test these items. And so she wound up calling like a local adult sex shop and then describing these various bizarre looking things and then getting the definitions of, that's whatever.
Yeah.
And
that goes here.
Right. That's what this is for. And that's what, and I thought, well, I probably shouldn't use some of those descriptions, but I mean, given our crowd, it probably wouldn't offend anybody. But however, that was really hilarious because there were some truly bizarre looking objects pulled out of that box.
Yeah, it makes you think, how did somebody come up with this idea, right? Who thinks this is a good direction to go?
And all the different colors of the universe, too.
Okay, of course. Yeah, the rainbow.
Like
your
rainbow
own
colors.
bag of Skittles.
Yeah. It was truly just bizarre, unforgettable.
Yeah, really. Clearly. So you've been in the field for more than 15 years. What changes have you seen in terms of women in the field? And what I'm getting at here is, have you seen an evolution in the number of opportunities for advancement, for pay equity, for leadership positions, or real recognition of how women have helped pioneer this science?
I would say in the time that I've been in forensics, and actually I was in forensics for a few years in another lab prior to Virginia, and I would say in the time that I've been in forensics, I've seen not only just an increase in the proportion of forensic scientists being women, I've also seen a really big increase in the proportion of women in more leadership roles. More female crime lab directors, more female program managers and technical leads, because when I first came in, it was predominantly male in those kind of upper level,
sure.
Directorial sorts of positions. But that's shifted quite a bit, and there's been a lot of progress, I think, for women to have more high-level roles. On the flip side, it makes me also wonder, where did all the men go in forensics? Because obviously at one time this was all male-dominated, and I just wonder if they're just being less attracted to the field, you know, because it's not just that women have higher level roles, we're just the predominant sex in this field now by a long shot. And, you know, it is just one of the things I just wonder.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, you walk into any lab, it's predominantly female, right?
It's predominantly female,
yes.
and even at our program manager and director level, there are still quite a few men. It's at least probably 50%, but still, I mean, it's a big shift in the time I've been in this field.
Sure, that's a good observation. So, putting your leadership hat on, what would your advice be to a female colleague who may be stepping into her first leadership role, whether it be a tech lead, lab director, you know, what kind of advice would you pass on?
You know, honestly, I don't think I would give any different advice to a female than a male.
Okay.
And I think the advice that I would give that would be just a couple of basic things. And one is, listen to your staff. Really listen to what they have to say. They're the ones who are in the trenches now. You're now kind of out of the trenches, but you need to know what the problems they're dealing with. What if they have misgivings about moving in a particular direction, or they're nervous about, you know, moving to next-gen sequencing or something. Listen to your staff, work with your staff. I think that is really critical to having, you know, a really functioning, productive and happy group of scientists who enjoy coming to work every day.
Absolutely.
The other piece of advice that I really try to take to heart for myself, and I tell my students, is it actually comes, I was looking into this, I thought it was a Native American saying, and it may very well be, but I read something that it's actually like from some Zen master from 8th century China.
Oh, wow.
But the gist of it is, you cannot fill a cup that's already full. And with the point being that, you know, remain open.
Yes.
Remain open so that you can keep learning. If you think you know everything, if you've got all the answers, well then you can't be filled. You cannot keep growing. And so it's something that is a personal, you know, motivation for me, and I also would recommend it for anybody in any sort of leadership role. You know, don't be a full cup.
Yeah, I love that philosophy.
I do too, yeah.
I learn from my team every single day, you know, and I'm grateful for what I can learn from them. I can pass on some advice saying, hey, you know, I've been there, I know what it's like, you know, to be relatively new into these roles. But I also take a perspective of the power of, you know, hearing what they have to say. As you said, right, I'm a couple of steps behind and behind the scenes, so I don't see what they're seeing every day. So if they're coming to me saying, you know what, this process isn't working, or we're really frustrated with this, I'd be foolish not to listen to that and to try and help them say, okay, what are we going to do about it? You know, what would you like to do about it? You know, what do you think our first step should be for making this go away? So I really appreciate that. I've been talking to some younger scientists. We have ISHE ambassadors this year. So we opened up an opportunity for 4 students to come to ISHE for the first time. And share their experiences, present a poster on the research that they're doing. They're all in PhD programs in forensic sciences. 2 are in FIU and 2 are in Bruce Badoli's lab. And one of the things that also came across that reason I'm bringing it up is you're talking about, you know, the listening and being supportive and so forth. They were commenting about, you know, trying to balance all of the challenges of being in a PhD program and how impossible it would be for them to be successful if they didn't have the support of their lab directors who, you know, they may be difficult to find because they're often in meetings or they're doing this or do that, but their door is always open and they feel that they can have very candid conversations with them, right? 2 of them are actually mothers and, you know, and I can't even begin to think about trying to balance that. So it's really, again, one of those differences that we touched on earlier between our field and some of the other fields out there. I think there is an appreciation for how hard this work is and recognizing that everybody in the lab makes a significant contribution and being open to what they bring to that conversation and to the dialogue and how the lab is running is really paramount. So I'm so grateful that you brought that up. Okay, I've got one last question for you. Describe your perfect day. Now, this could be at work, away from work. I'm just curious as to things you're doing, who you're with. You know, are you, you know, on a beach someplace? Are you in the lab and you've just had a eureka moment? You know, what's a perfect day like to you?
Well, you know, honestly, a perfect day would be where something we've been working on and struggling with in the laboratory. We, you know, let's say we're trying to adapt something to our automation platform and we were just struggling with it and we couldn't get it to work, and every time it just, we'd run it and the robot would crash or it just wasn't aspirating properly, or we weren't setting up this process well. And we realized, you know, our team just realizes, what if we tried it some other different way? You know, you have that sort of just, why not? Let's just see what happens when we try it, and then it works beautifully. That is such a wonderful feeling.
Absolutely.
And so when you have that sort of, you know, aha, hey, maybe the answer is this. And it just seems so obvious after you come up with that answer. And you try something different. You go down a different path. After you've done it, it seems you think to yourself, why didn't we figure that out before? But it's such a great feeling to have something like that you achieve at work, and then after work, if I can go play a fantastic tennis match, then that's one great day. And then follow that by a wonderful meal with my husband or something like that. And maybe seeing my kids, they're both in college. That would be just an all around, you just can't beat it sort of day. You have that wonderful satisfaction of solving a puzzle at work. Then you get some great just competitive exercise. I really love sports. And then afterwards, polish it off by spending a wonderful meal with friends and family. That's can't beat that for a great day.
Oh, that sounds pretty darn good to me too. I'll give you that, most definitely. I really appreciate the time. You know, I've always admired the work that you and your lab are doing. You know, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have gotten, you know, a chance to talk with you today and at previous issues. But thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and really grateful for your time, and look for the article on the issue report hopefully in November.
Well, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You know, I meet a lot of students, and I've had a lot of students over the years, and actually one of my students is presenting at this meeting.
Oh, awesome.
And I was talking with him yesterday, and I said, it's like my babies, you know, and when you see them out there just excelling, and now they're leaders in forensics, it's a great feeling.
Oh, absolutely. You should be very proud of the work that you're doing.
I feel proud of them. I mean, they made it happen, and so it's really great to see that.
Yeah, but they had a good mentor too. So, excellent. Thanks so much.